Good evening and welcome to the Measure Q Citizens Bond Oversight Committee for Wednesday, September 26th, here at 6:30 p.m. in the Dixon City Council chambers. Let's open the meeting by standing for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call. Had Smith, chairperson, I am present. Gary Riddle.
Present.
Jack Caldwell. He is absent. Andrea Kett.
Here.
Julie Mustard.
Here.
Georgette Portier.
Here.
Robert Strong.
Here.
Okay. I will accept a motion to adopt the agenda as posted.
I'll make the motion to adopt the agenda as posted.
Can I have a second, please?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed? Passed unanimously. We have the unadopted minutes in front of us. At this time, I will open up that for discussion. No committee discussion on the minutes, no suggestions. Open up to the public for public comment on the unadopted minutes. Seeing none, I'll solicit a motion to accept the minutes as prepared.
Motion to approve?
Second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor of adopting the minutes?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, that passed unanimously. We have nothing listed for the consent calendar, so we will move on to our formal agenda. The main item of tonight's meeting is to review the prepared draft of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee Annual Report. That was posted to our website 1 week ago. It is a draft. There are sections that still need to be completed, but from the chair's opinion, I was very pleased with the committee in putting together a very nice first draft. So I'll open up to the committee to discuss the draft that's in front of you.
I suggest we start right down, starting with your letter, Tad. I had some comments on it, but first there are just a couple things, suggestions for word change, nothing serious. Here where we say, during our first year of functioning as a committee, not much construction, I just suggest you put limited in there, but that's just preference.
Okay.
And down farther, we're talking about the district has taken advantage of additional matching funds to upgrade energy efficiency. Was that from grants? Is that not correct? Those were grants?
It was from the state of California, energy grants, yes, outside the jurisdiction of the bond money.
Yeah, matching funds, I think is something a little different.
Okay,
So I think grants would be the proper thing there.
right.
Okay.
Did you say instead of additional matching funds, just change it to other grant funds?
Grant
just
funds?
additional grants?
Yeah, we can,
Or grants?
I would check, I'll check with John Cleese on that and get the exact correct wording.
My comments are regarding the statement about our website. And said it's functional. I guess we need to define functional. My definition is that it's functional is informative and well-designed or user-friendly. And I think we got a ways to go on that. I don't know what the other members think about.
I agree.
I agree.
I agree.
And I had written to John, I think I had CC'd you on it too. We'd written twice to make sure that those, you had written like September 12th to have those updates made to it, and I don't believe that they were. Mark might be able to answer that.
Sorry.
No.
Are the two updates correspondence and contracts on the, I'm going to call it outside webpage as opposed to the Dixon USD webpage? So
What is
those
it?
two
Yes.
links have been added to the Measure Q webpage,
Okay.
the outside webpage.
Did you see that email that we forwarded with Gary's? There were like three bullet points, right, Gary, that you had wanted?
Yeah, they were just things that hadn't been added to the
Okay,
website.
so that's been,
So the two that John and I spoke of were a link for correspondence, which essentially is a email link,
okay,
and a link for contracts,
Contracts.
which will link you back to our webpage with the contracts.
okay.
Well, but if there's a third,
I'll look at it again.
Okay.
Let me try to pull it up.
Yeah, maybe later we get the website thing, I had some questions about.
Maybe we could pull it up here and walk through it too. I don't know if that's an option. Okay.
Okay,
Anyway, real quick, just to follow up, I'll be happy to take suggestions from the website committee as to how to phrase that description for the letter from the vice chair. So send me a few sentences and we'll just splice it
Okay.
right in.
Relatively functional.
Yeah, I had to write this before I could see the rest of the report, so,
Yeah.
kind of placeholder.
and in our, down here where we're talking about the website and the giving the address for the Dixon Measure Q, we still need to tell the public which website they need to go to, how they get to the videos of these meetings. And it's not on our website now unless it was changed in the last 24 hours.
I would suggest that needs to be, embedded in the report at some point. Maybe we need to put in a section on website and.
Perhaps a link on ours
citizen-
to take it back to where they are.
Yeah,
Instead of having people go to two different websites, right?
And that's what I was doing earlier, was
Yep.
kind of bouncing back and forth. And we need to
Yep.
have that music stop. Somehow turn that, because every time you open it somewhere, the video starts playing in that music. I mean, I
Yep.
think that's been long enough of that going.
So I know this report is through June of
Yes.
2018, and I understand what we're
Oh.
discussing is an in-progress working website that we've
It's
been
true.
trying to update and make it truly functional. So the report, I'm not sure if we should mention that, but we could just say that, it is a work in progress, right? The website, and then for the next report, we'll definitely spell out what's happened
It's true,
for that
Right.
year.
because it goes through June 30th. Good point.
But maybe it does need to be reworded.
Yes.
Rather than say functional. So
Okay.
we'll leave that as a draft.
okay.
And it gets worse. I've got one more. Your final sentence,
One in yellow,
What?
that's placeholder,
Yes.
and that's all it serves.
I would, go ahead, Gary. I'll let you put your suggestion and then I'll make one on that sentence specifically.
the compliance with the California Constitution regarding the financial results, and we found no exceptions on the audit, and we didn't look at the documents, the auditor did, so I guess we're taking their word that all those documents were as stated. But the California Constitution has the requirements, the laws that govern it, and we weren't in compliance. The district, as we pointed out, missed several opportunities to follow those codes. So that could be reworded regarding the financial part, but not, just want to, you don't have to say, but they weren't in compliance, because we already addressed that in our, the interim audit report.
Okay, we can just strike the reference to California Constitution, just finish with the fact that, the bond funds were used appropriately, perhaps based on the audit findings.
I'm not sure yet about that.
Okay,
I'm still kind of in the limbo.
Maybe reworded to say, thus far, it appears that,
all right.
Yeah, because we do have some discussion left on one.
I think we should just leave that open for now.
Okay.
Until we further discuss the entire report.
All right.
I do have one question or one comment. I think on the first page of the letter, third paragraph towards the end where it mentions playground equipment, I'm not sure if that was supposed to be bond funds, because based on how I was reviewing the encumbrance and expenditures report, it looks like they used it and then they removed it. So maybe something that they need to that we need to get clarification from the district.
Okay.
If,
Yeah, I
playground
didn't think the
equipment's-
bond covered playground equipment.
That's why I wanted to
Yeah,
make sure
I don't
before
think that
I
was-
fully strike that out.
It was the one at the Montessori school that it had to be ADA compliant, right?
Safety reasons, yeah.
So
Safety.
that group, that category called fire life safety, the playground equipment fell
I
under
see.
the safety.
Right, right.
Okay.
So that
And
was
what
out-
school is this again? I'm sorry.
At Montessori.
Old Sylvieville, it's now the Dixon Montessori.
So
We're
was
talking about
that
the
under Measure
kindergarten
Q
side?
money or not?
Montessori site.
I believe it was.
It was?
The kindergarten.
There's one more item, and I don't know if it should go in the beginning or where, but in our bylaws, Section 4, notices and reports, we stated the committee shall include in each report a request for the public to provide information either publicly or confidentially about knowledge of expenditures or practices with respect to matters over which the committee has jurisdiction. And, we put that in the bylaws and approved it. And I know you did acknowledge that we welcome the committee, but maybe we need to expound upon that a little bit. If anybody out there is reading our report and listening.
With that being said, if I may make a comment on the first page as well, I don't know where you put it, but I would like to see maybe in the second paragraph that we are appointed and not elected. I think that should be specified.
And volunteers.
Correct. I mean,
Yep.
but, volunteers that were appointed and not elected.
Okay.
I don't know if the committee feels that we should specify that we were appointed by district, but, or who appointed us, but maybe that might not be a bad thing to include either.
So right in the first paragraph, I mentioned, there were a group of 7 volunteers, so how did you describe that?
That we're appointed and not elected.
Okay.
Yeah, you've mentioned that in your first sentence, second sentence.
Well, that's a volunteer, but you
Yep.
volunteer to be appointed, you volunteer to be elected.
Yeah,
Either way, I mean,
Okay.
I'm just trying to be more specific, that's all.
all right. So are we moving on to the roles and activities section?
Excuse me. Is this on?
Yeah,
I
Okay.
hear you.
Point of clarification, how are you planning to take public comments? It's discussion or at the end of the discussion?
Since this is going on a little bit longer than I expected per item, so take public comment now for the letter from the vice chair, and then we'll just take public comment as we go through each of these sections.
like page by page tag?
Well, section by section.
Section by
Section,
section?
please.
Okay.
That might be easier. So I'll open up for public comment from the letter from the vice chair.
I just want to remind the committee that the district violated the law twice. They violated at Code 15278 when they didn't appoint the committee on a timely matter, and they violated the law 15286 when they did not provided the audit to you at the same time that was submitted to the school district. And there are some other, no violations of the law, but promises they made in the ballot argument to the voters. And I will not go in detail to that, but so you cannot say that the district did not, they follow the California Constitution. Twice they didn't, so just a reminder.
Just briefly, I would agree with Ms. Riddle. You can't put that in there and then have a statement on page 17, the results of financial and performance audits, add the audit finding that the district failed to perform the oversight committee, and add an audit finding the district did not provide copies of independent financial and performance audits to the CBOC at the same time. So this needs to be changed. You need to not be so complimentary to the district when they fail to do certain things, that's all. There are other things within this, you know, scope, contracts, the rest of that. Maybe you don't feel this way, but I do, that Mr. Calise has pretty much run interference for the school district and is not providing things on time. It's nice to see Mr. Monahan here tonight because the website has been just a total mess. And we've commented any number of times to Mr. Calise about it. Finally, we've got somebody here that's in the IT area to take care of it. I would hope that what has been provided to you was accurate. I have no way of checking it. I don't know that you do either, because you know, you've gotten the response back from Mr. Calise that you know, you're going to go beyond the scope of what you're doing. I mean, it seemed to me it's been a constant fight. I would like to have seen something in the overview letter saying that you would hope for better cooperation from the school district than what you've been given in the past. And by the way, I had to borrow this draft report from Ms. Riddle because there's only like one or two copies back there. Be nice if there were enough of them to share. Thank you.
I need to reiterate on that point regarding the Constitution and saying that the bonds were used appropriately. When you miss a date, you didn't use anything. You haven't reported it. So let's be honest here, please. Thank you.
Okay. I think we're ready to move on to the next section, please.
Okay, initially, the paragraph where we're talking about the first series of Measure Q general obligation bonds were issued April 2nd. After that, I put a paragraph in there about the bond assessment rate that was misestimated or underestimated on the ballot measure. And it was taken out, and the rationale was, well, we didn't discuss that during the last year. I think it's important, you know, it'll be old news by the time we do another report at our rate. So, and I know it's been in the newspaper, but everybody knows no one reads the newspapers. And I think that we might want to consider basically, you know, the rate they estimated was $36.75 per 100,000 assessed value, and it's actually 49.81 cents per $100,000 assessed value, about a 30% difference. I wish somebody was here to tell me who made that estimate. I assume it was our financial advisor on the bond measure, which no longer has a contract with us, but I don't know. I don't know who made the estimate.
Do you know who made the revised estimate?
Well, the revised estimate is done by the controller auditor. They're the ones that have to do the computations and tell the treasurer how much. They have to make sure enough money is collected to pay for the bond. So, you know, the assessment is wrong. We've committed, we voted for the bond issue, so we do have to pay for. If it was $60, we would have to pay for it. We've already committed, even though we were given an incorrect estimate. But that was significant. And the thing that caught my eye was that the assessment for Measure Q and the one for Measure J, which was passed in 2004. It's been revised several times. Were combined, and I had never seen that. It was always, you had separate line items. And if you look at your tax statement, you'll see there are a number of entries on it for the Solano County Community College. They didn't combine theirs, but they combined our two. And I hope that wasn't to disguise the discrepancy in the estimate, but regardless, it is what it is.
So
But
Gary, you know, if you look on our agenda, new business, we have a whole section dedicated to discussing this Measure Q tax rate, because I do think it is a serious issue and it needs to be more formally addressed. But we did pull it out of this report because it was not discussed prior to June 30th. So it'd be up to the committee to decide if we want to put a section in there describing that. But I think it's going to take us a little bit of time to get to the bottom of it, to know what to insert.
Well, I don't think there's a lot, unless we plan on going through an investigation. I don't think we're going to do that. It is what it is. And but this is information. You know, we talk about transparency and full disclosure. You know, I think the school district should have let the public know about that.
then I would suggest go ahead and let's put a paragraph under background, and we can just include that, in relationship to the funding part that's listed here in the background. That would be my
I
suggestion.
agree. I mean, I think we should include it just because it is a serious matter and it's something that the public should know. I definitely needed to know that. And it might be too late at the next report. So maybe in addition to what Gary had mentioned, maybe we can add another sentence that there is a follow-up, that we will, we need to further discuss this and we'll report anything we find out for the next fiscal year.
I agree. So Gary, if you would draft,
I already have it.
you already have it?
I just deleted it.
Okay.
Just 'cause it wasn't something we discussed, so.
All right, so,
I'll go ahead and include that verbiage, and then I'll just add that we will further discuss at the next report. or
okay.
Something along that.
But, Georgette, my only concern is if we put it in there, I want to make sure it's accurate. So,
I think I have the same email that
Okay.
I did also request this information, because I do work for the county.
okay,
And I did receive the same figures, and I can
Okay.
confirm that.
All right.
Okay?
Okay, moving right along. I had one under, farther down, the final sentence before we get to the section on Measure Q, classroom repair, renovation, and safety. We're still in the roles and activities. The sentence, the committee is confirming if bond funds can be expended for any salary of a member of the district staff, such as clerical staff, in support of bond projects. And my comment is, the law is the law, and the AG opinion is that, an opinion, not a change in the law. However, the district has already accepted the AG opinion as authority to use bond funds for the salaries. There is nothing to discuss with the district. I don't think anything we're going to say is going to change that. So I don't know, we want to change that sentence or put some different wording. It's right here. Yeah, it's final sentence in that section. See, roles and activities.
Sure.
Thank you.
I don't think you should change it. I think you should explain how you're confirming it. And I think that it is the duty of this committee to confirm that that's correct, because we are supposed to be looking at the proper use of the funds. So when you wrote that, or whoever wrote it, what were you thinking of how you're going to confirm it? Does anybody have an idea?
I'm assuming in the ed code, or, I mean,
Well, the ed code hasn't been changed.
Yeah, it says you're supposed to spend
It
it on.
states that
spend it on.
administrative expense and other operating expenses will not be used.
Right.
But the Attorney General took an exception. I guess the school district wrote to him, and he took an exception. And they're using, the district is using the Attorney General opinion from 2004 as a justification.
Right, and I understand that. But the thing is, the Attorney General also said that 5 minutes was a reasonable amount of time to speak on any agenda item before a council, and the council consistently changes that to 3 minutes or less. So if that Attorney General's opinion can be ignored, this Attorney General's opinion can be ignored. Now, short of litigating it, I don't know how you're going to confirm it. And I mean, that's what it's going to take. So making the statement that you're confirming it without saying what action you're taking to confirm it, I think is misleading to the public. Thank you.
Okay, if I remember, John Cleese said he was paying staff, what, 20%? just simply because he couldn't do the job unless he got additional assistance, and that was the only way he could get additional assistance.
Right.
So it is in direct support for this effort. It's certainly not teacher's salary, but it supports staff to oversee this building project.
Because he can't do it all himself.
Correct.
And I think the 20% is just something that he assumed. I don't think it was something, I don't know if it's something the district had to say or what. But I mean, I also heard the same comment.
Do you have any idea on that? That's outside your area of expertise, I realize.
Just slightly.
Just slightly, okay. All right, so, thank you, we will look into that.
District attorney can tell us.
She's too busy arranging
She's
lunch
too
dates.
busy getting lunches and breakfast.
Okay.
Page 7, we need to confirm everybody's email addresses and make sure it's correct also on our website, because I remember, Robert, I think you had to change yours
Yes,
because it wasn't working. Is this correct?
let me verify that.
And I think, Jack, you're the only one.
Yeah, Jack and I are going to talk after this is over. and
Okay,
this
so
meeting.
I'll just highlight,
Needs to be Jaxie.
It's a work in progress.
I'll just highlight both Robert and Jack and have you guys confirm, and we need to update it on our website.
Well, Robert, I've sent you several emails using your new address. Have you gotten any?
Yep, that is correct.
Okay,
Okay.
so it's only Jack that is the malcontent.
Somebody's got to do
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah, okay.
I volunteered.
Yep. Yeah, the unadopted minutes, yeah, I received that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we do have that section talking about the fact that the school board did not establish this committee in a timely manner, and then that Superintendent Dolan did acknowledge that mistake and took responsibility for it. So we did capture that information here on page 7.
Okay, I have a comment on that.
Okay,
That statement about the apology, I think we should remove that sentence. The superintendent's apology rings hollow. If it was an oversight, it indicates the lack of priority in establishing this committee. The architect designed RFQs were sent out 5 months before the election. Before the committee's first meeting on June 28th, the contract for the design and the bond management services, creative strategies, were awarded in February, and the bond issue was awarded during March 2017, thus eliminating any prior opportunity for review or comment by the committee. So, the superintendent should not apologize to the board, should explain to the board why he didn't do it, and he should have apologized to the people that voted for the bond measure, because this was one of the critical things that was put in so that Prop 39 would pass. The Oversight Committee and the independent audits. Those were the two things that were put in to convince the voters that these bond funds would be expended properly. So I think he owed an apology, should have been to the community, not to the board. But, so I would say, to strike that, we don't, the comments that I made, we don't need to put those in there. But,
well, I kind of disagree. Some of the comments you just made, I think, would fully flesh that out and probably do need to be in there at this point.
Yeah.
that's, that's fine too.
So, Georgette, I think you wrote this section? Or based on, no, who wrote this section?
You tell.
Well, I wrote this one part pertaining to the superintendent, but
Oh,
I
I'm
mean,
sorry,
the
uh-huh.
section that Gary just described, did you get any additional information on that? No. So Gary, if you would send Georgette a brief summary that could be inserted here on that. I
Right.
think what you described was elegantly stated and needs to be included.
Okay?
I don't know how I feel about this last one. The purpose of the contracts review subcommittee is to review and confirm that all contracts, professional services, and construction contracts are being solicited and awarded through a competitive process. You leave it at that. This body doesn't have the authority to push them one way or the other. We have the responsibility to report to the Dixon citizens if they do it or not. And I think that somehow might want to be captured there, because it may create the expectation that we tell them, no, you can't do that. We don't have that authority. We have the responsibility to them to say, yes, they did, or no, they didn't. So I don't know how you would capture that properly.
Where are you?
I am at the bottom of page 7.
Dawn.
Yeah,
Subcommittee.
bottom of page 7, so, Tad, I'm not sure that review and confirm is that there's any authority represented there. I think it's exactly as it's written, review it, confirm that, yes, there was a competitive process, but there's no, I don't want to say decision-making.
Or
represented in
corrective
that
ability?
statement.
There's no
it's a
corrective
review and
ability?
confirm. Yes, this occurred.
You're talking about the second half of the paragraph.
We confirm that this occurred. I don't, I understand what Robert's saying, and I agree, but I don't think that's what's represented here.
But it's just saying that we're reviewing and confirming.
Right.
We're not saying.
That we're going to interrupt that process in any
We're just
way.
reviewing and confirming. Again, the purpose of the entire committee is to do the oversight piece.
Right.
Not
Well-
necessarily tell them what
Yeah, and I
to do,
thi-
unless we do see something
And
wrong.
I think that's a clear statement of that.
That was
Our
that is our
process, our
stated
charge.
purpose. Unfortunately, it hasn't worked out like that because there's information involved to reach that,
Order first
to actually perform that. There's documents that we haven't seen. So
So should we have a,
it's a good purpose, but unless Georgette disagrees with me, because we're the ones who are on the bond.
I think it's on the second sentence. I mean, it specifically says that,
so we could put something in there,
although that's our duty,
Yeah.
we have not observed the selection process, nor did we receive any documentation. I mean, that is our job.
Well, that's
Right?
right. You,
But by observe the contract selection process, to me, when I read that, that sounds like we are in the meeting observing. I think that's where because we wouldn't be,
We could, technically. Yes, we could.
okay?
No, you're not,
We're
not
not,
gonna
That sounds like, I think, yeah,
Yeah.
that
We're
sounds
not-
like that
we're not going to be brought
part
into
of
their
the
contract
process.
review process.
No.
We're not going to sit in there as they review contracts with construction work. That's not going to happen. We're going to get the documentation from them and review that. Based on based on information they give us, we're going to report to the citizens what we see. And that's all we're going to do.
Right.
We're not going to tell them you can or can't. We're going to say you should or shouldn't have, and this is what we're reporting to the citizens. I mean, we need to understand what our role is
I'm
and not
more on the
overstep it.
public side. I understand what the public does when it comes to actual contract selection, when we do interviews, when,
Right.
There's things that we look at. And unfortunately, we, as a committee, won't be able to have the chance to do that if we don't request. I mean, but if you're telling me that it's not, that we're overdoing our job, if we do.
No,
No, that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that we stay within the framework of what this committee's supposed to do. That's all I'm suggesting. I'm not saying
where's
we're.
that defined, Robert, what we're supposed to do? Is there a limit? Is there something in the code that you've read that limits what our,
I'd have to review it to get the specific verbiage, but,
well,
it
it's
is
not
pretty
there,
specific.
I guarantee you.
It's just, when I read the however sentence, it sounds like that we didn't get a chance to be there when the selection process was happening.
That's another thing, no.
Well, we weren't even informed when these three contracts, the design, the cooperative strategies, the bond, the one that's going to
Assessment,
monitor the bond, which,
The assessment.
the assessment, we weren't even formed.
Yeah, we weren't even a committee then.
So, regardless of how much depth that we go into on the contracts, it's still, I think it's, we probably need to put a disclaimer in there so that, a lot of people in the public don't know, and assuming somebody's going to read our report, they don't know, well, they're an oversight committee. Everything's open to them. They look at everything. We want them to know if something comes up, I don't want the integrity of this committee to be challenged. So that could maybe be reworded if we're going to accept the fact that there's certain documents that we're not going to get and we're not going to ever see. But it's,
So,
receiving documentation and observing the process are two different things. And if we're taking, as a committee, taking exception to whether we are authorized to observe the process and not see supporting documents of the selection, and I believe that's the position that the district has taken currently. They're not going to show us. John made the comment, I asked last meeting about the selection. How did well, it turns out that Cooperative Strategies, our contractor there, they evaluated the design proposals. I believe I understood him to say that.
Them first, yes.
And that we couldn't see their selection process because it was proprietary information, and I can't imagine a selection process being so unique that somebody would object, that somebody's going to steal their idea on how to. I think contract selection is not a real complicated issue. You decide what are the things that you put in your proposal, and you grade them how they matched up. Did they get their contract proposal in on time? Did they answer all the questions? And did when you grade them on that, I don't think, I wasn't happy with that answer, but it is what it is.
so is it a true statement that our purpose is to review and confirm, so on and so forth within that one sentence? What I'm doing is I'm kind of backing this up a little bit and go point by point and say, if this is true or isn't true, and then towards the end there, have we had anything submitted to us to review and confirm? Have we had any document in our hand as a committee to review and confirm to this point right now, to this date? Have we had that?
What, under contracts?
Yes,
Yeah, anything.
yes.
Okay, so then what we would have, do we have a list of contracts or materials that we should have received to review and confirm, and we haven't? You know where I'm going with this? So what's missing in this? So we
Well, I
could put in
think
here-
when we get down to that section, Georgette had made a pretty detailed.
Later on, you'll see which
Yeah,
ones
she
we did
said-
not receive.
Yeah, she,
Okay, so I think that we're really, in my view of this, that we're operating within our charge and we're within our scope, and we're addressing the things that are in that scope. I just think that we did not observe the contract selection process wandered out of our scope. That's my thought. And I think that's Robert's thought as well. So there's not any, okay, I'll stop right there.
well, I can
Not done, but
tell you, I personally know of a bond oversight committee that the chair of that committee goes to all the contract meetings that they have. And this particular school district has a lot of big contracts. And he's invited to go along to observe everything.
Is that a courtesy invitation, or is that within the scope of their
It's,
agreement?
again, there's nothing specific that says, well, in the codes that, the main thing, they talk about the main purpose. The purpose is for us to assure the public that these expenditures are being used properly. Well, that's not just a matter of looking at a financial report that's printed up and given to us, and we say, yeah, I know that contract, and that contract, and that contract, and so everything is okay. How did we get from, to that expense? How do we know that that contract, could have been there could have been issue with that contract? We would never know that.
And so, and what kind of issue, for an example, would be a good example of what you're saying?
Well, we should be questioning if the proposals and things are, one contractor has a better proposal. I mean, it doesn't mean that you have to accept one or the other. Again, we're not in a decision-making, but we should be able to question
Well,
those things.
So,
Well, I think what you're saying, if I'm hearing you right, Gary, and I agree with you, is that if you have the contract that got rejected and it would have been a better value, then the citizens need to understand, well, they selected this contract, but this one would have been a better value based on whatever, I mean, based on your background, you've got background in this too, right?
No,
So-
I don't,
But you should be able to see and compare and understand how they got to the process, right?
I think we should at least be in a position to ask the questions.
Agreed.
And we're not in a decision-making, and we don't get into subjective areas.
And that's all I'm saying.
It's
I
got to
agree
be
with you.
objective.
We don't tell them what to do, but then again, we should be able to ask them how they got to the point that they're at with those contracts.
Absolutely.
I think
That's correct.
I think it's fully within our scope to ask questions about any part of this.
I think it's our
process,
responsibility.
And then, and expect an answer, and if,
Exactly.
and I think that,
And expect
covers
an
it.
answer that's confirmable, right?
Right.
Expect an answer that we can verify, okay, well, see how you got there, I get your answer, and it makes sense. Or, I got your answer, but it's not driving with what I'm seeing.
Right.
But
So-
either way,
If this is regarding, back to the selection process, hopefully, the RFP process, or however, they arrived at soliciting, contracts, was so well-written that all the respondents would be conforming to that RFP, and there's not going to be, what's the deciding factor in this? Is that, everybody is bidding on exactly the same scope of work, and in the end, the deciding factor is their bid amount, right? So what are the things that can cause a contractor's bid to be non-responsive? Would it be, if an engineer's estimate was $100,000 for something, and all the bids came in somewhere near that area, and all of a sudden you got one in there that's half price? I can tell you from my experience that that's a non-responsive, because I will also do my own estimates for everything too. So I know what to expect, and I know what range I expect things to fall in. And I have had contractors in the past that were, it's never double or triple unless they're just saying, hey, I don't want it, which they shouldn't have bid on it in the first place. But more often it's been somebody that came in at half. And sometimes, I don't know how it applies to a school district, but sometimes these contractors have a very calculated low bid, and they've already got their book written of change orders.
Right.
And they pretty much hop out on first day when they step on the job, the first day, they've got that book in hand, they open it up, and they start letting you know how it's going to be. So I think that if everything goes through here with these contractors as what you would call a normal, typical business process for this type of a project, then there shouldn't have been anybody that had a more favorable proposal unless it was the best price for the work that was specified to be done. And I would add on to that, that they have a verifiable track record, references that show that they're very solid in, in what they do. Anyhow, that's,
I agree.
okay.
So I recognize the public.
I want to add, but go ahead. I know you've been standing there.
Want to add? Go ahead.
Oh, well, what I just wanted to explain is that, with construction contracts, it's the numbers, right? Typically, the way the competitive bid, unless it's a different delivery method, typically it's the bottom line numbers. With consulting firms, it's very different. It's not by numbers, okay? Because there's other qualifications that we look for. So that's the problem, is that we did not receive any of that. We didn't know. First of all, we weren't even formed by the time we selected them, but we didn't get any of that documentation. So I just want to make sure everybody's clear and that they understand that the selection process between a professional services and construction contracts totally different. Yes, we can go look in a board meeting that a construction contract was put in. They can simply say, yes, there were like so many contractors submitted their bids. And I can understand that, but when it comes to professional services, I definitely need to understand how they selected that firm, because it's not going to be by bottom numbers. It's not like something that they can just report.
The only thing I would say is this report ought to reflect what happened. So we've discussed a lot about the fact we weren't constituted, a lot of stuff had happened. We need to capture that there and explain that to the public, state what we did, and, state what we didn't do. Perhaps someone might say we should have, but, just be clear what we did and what we didn't do. And I think that would kind of capture the essence of that discussion.
Agreed. Yeah, it sounds good, Ted.
Okay. I want to get back to that specific line that Mr. Strong was questioning. I would say that this is not a strong enough statement. You should say that you need to review the RFPs, you need to review the contracts or the bids as submitted, make your own determination. You can disagree with the board, on whatever basis you want to. But the fact of the matter is, to be able to comprehensively and cogently respond and say that you're sure that this was solicited and awarded through a competitive process, you have to be able to see those documents. Now, all of those are public documents. Once the bids have been open, you can see them. So I don't know why they're not being provided to you, and they should have been for anything, including the consultant services or whatever. I don't disagree with much of what you've said up here on the subject, but I think that this is a fairly weak statement that you need to put in there. We will, in the future, be reviewing all of these contracts to assure that we're getting the best bang for the buck, more or less. And I think that's the way that should go. And I think most of you have said something to that specifically. And I mean, it's difficult, it's like Jack says, dealing with the city, I've seen it through their RFP process. You get these low-ball bidders that come in, and then they hit you with change orders. And you have to take that into account. Most people that have been doing this long enough, like Jack, are sophisticated enough to tell when that's happening. And you reject the low bid. For consultants, that's a totally different ballgame. You have to look at their expertise and probably former product work or whatever. And you would have to request all of that too as a committee to make sure that you're spending money appropriately there. I don't know that that's been done. And it goes back to what I said initially about not being provided the right documentation or all the documentation. And, when you have a person that's acting as the intermediary telling you that, you're not entitled to all this, and we had a fight like hell, that should even be reflected here. You had a fight like hell to get that documentation presented to you. And it was a member of the public kept pushing, until he finally said, okay, well, I'll give it to them, but if they go over bounds, I'll tell them so. Well, that needs to be reflected in this report, too.
Just another clarification or cleanup. The last sentence should not be there.
Yeah.
This page is the duplicates.
Exactly.
just want to remind you, a few meetings ago, when the school, they went to hire the consultants for environmental reports, and there were 5 submitted proposals. I went down to the school district, and I got all 5 submitted proposals, and I read them through, and the DUDEC that the school district hired was not the cheapest one, but they also said they wouldn't do a traffic report, and now they're forced to do a traffic report, which is going to cost more money. But when I brought this issue to this committee, Mr. Kali said that you individually could go and get the copies of the 5 contracts, but as a whole you couldn't. And I just could not believe what I heard that night, because this is public records. The minute the contract is open, anybody can get the contract. And are you guys done with these comments? Because I have to make a comment about the apology of the superintendent.
Go ahead.
I have another comment, but you go
Go
ahead and
ahead.
finish up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the superintendent was notified in January by the Solano County Taxpayers Association that he had to put together the committee by the 13th of March. In fact, Joe DiPaolo, rest his soul, called me one day, and he was just livid because the process had not even started. And then we have an email from the superintendent dated March 13, who said that on March 22nd, he will close the application period, and on March 23rd, the board will meet on a special meeting to appoint the committee members. Well, it was as late as May 23rd that people from this committee apply, and May 25th was when the last board member, and I think Todd was the last one, was appointed to the committee. So the superintendent knew what he was doing. He was specifically looking for specific people to be on this committee.
Question for you, if you don't mind. Do you have any idea how many applications were submitted for this committee?
No,
Us,
yeah,
just us,
that's
I
it,
think. That's it.
that's it.
We didn't beat
So
anybody
there-
out.
So we were waiting for the
I don't
quantity.
believe
That's
there was
why
anybody left behind.
he chose 7 to be, because a committee can be more than 7. You have to have certain people representing center groups, but then after that, you can have people at large. You know, I know committees that they have as many as 12 people sitting on the bond oversight committee.
Didn't they extend the deadline? I remember seeing things that they were trying to recruit more people because it wasn't even full.
Well, if he couldn't find any, but my question, and I asked him, and, you know, he just didn't want to know what to say. Why didn't you send an email and tell the taxpayers that you beg us not to oppose Measure Q, and that's the only reason Measure Q passed? Why you tell us that March 22nd is the deadline and March 23rd? Why didn't say, okay, we have issues, we are trying to find people? To me, that doesn't come across as honesty.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so we're now on website subcommittee and audit subcommittee.
Audit subcommittee, you know, I prepared that statement, and I would like to add to it, and I'll give the wording, and then the committee can reject or accept. After final word there, legal requirements of the Ed Code, and conducted in accordance with the general accepted government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States. And that is specific in the Constitution article, whatever, for the Prop 39. So and that's where I think if I can say it, well, I will say it, I think the auditor may have missed the boat because under compliance, under the Auditor General, a compliance audit, which was what the performance audit was, as stated, you have to consider laws. And when the discussion came up about those laws where we wanted the findings put in the report in the performance audit, they said, oh, no, we're not supposed to, that's not part of the auditor or part of this committee's. Well, if we're not here to follow the ed codes, you know, I don't know what we are here for. That's where it's all specified, what we do, what we're supposed to do, and what the district's supposed to do, and everybody's responsibility. Anyway, long story short, if we can add that and we do our final review, if anybody wants to make any changes, exceptions, fine. I will send those to Georgette, since she's been our person that's keeping this report going, and thank her for that.
Sure. We'll take public comment.
I think the committee was delayed, and the superintendent was dishonest, and I think that should be put forward to the people. Otherwise, you're going to take the responsibility. Why wasn't it done right? And we won't vote for another bond for the school. Believe me. Thank you.
Any comments on the website subcommittee? Gary took care of the audit subcommittee. Okay.
I mean, like I said, I had sent those 2 emails that I hadn't received a response back, so I'll just follow up with that if we have anything additionally to add to that. We'll make sure that it is up to date per the changes that Gary wanted.
Is this where we should add the, about where the citizen would go to find the videos of our meetings? Because we, again, stated our website, dixonmeasureq.com, but...
Can I address that?
Mm-hmm.
Step down to do that.
Thank you.
Forget which hat I'm
You've been sitting, right?
So there are 2 websites, correct? I'm not speaking over there. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Right.
So
Yes.
one is controlled by the district, DixonUSD.org, which has a Measure Q feature on it. And then there is the outside website, the DixonMeasureQ.com. So we have access to the DixonUSD.com website, but not control. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the 2 pieces that were asked for, we could not do. The person who owns the website had to add those 2 pieces up into the title. So I will show you where we're at with those, and then where the meetings can be found on our website. Are you okay? Thank you. So from our website, clicking on the top link, under Parents, we have the bond information. Here is the link that takes us outside. And when I met with John, he asked that we add this contract piece and the correspondence piece. I will tell you that the, I don't think I...
Can we stop that
Yeah.
music sometime?
The correspondence piece just takes you to a link that will allow you to email the email that we've set up for the Measure Q bond that goes directly to the district, which is contact us. Unfortunately, when I looked there today, guess where contracts go?
Nowhere.
No, to the same place. So,
There's a link that sends you somewhere.
I will I will work with them. This contracts link should take us back to our webpage.
I'm assuming this is not active. Is this web page active, the one that you're looking at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I'm just asking.
Yeah. So if you go to the Citizens Oversight Committee, here are the board agenda, meetings, and minutes, and videos. Does that make sense? So if I click on videos, there they are for the last meetings that we've posted.
So it's a lot of clicking. There's no way to just hyperlink, include that hyperlink with.
That is a hyperlink.
No.
But it's not, yes,
You
correct.
can't just include the hyperlink within the outside webpage?
I don't control the outside web page. I have access to it, but I don't control it.
Got it.
So
My bad.
I control this. And on this page here, ultimately, under contracts, we have each project broken up. ADA projects, projects that have to meet American Disabilities Act, Anderson Elementary contracts, Dixon Middle School, and Fire Life Safety. These were just added when we spoke to John on Monday, and then the contracts will be listed under each of these. Does that make sense?
Why is this stuff just not on the Dixon Measure Q website with just the one link on the district website to take you to Dixon Measure Q?
I don't know. I don't control that website,
Because
remember?
that's the hard part for me.
Mark, when you say don't control the website, you're referring to Measure Q website?
The
You don't-
MeasureQ.com website.
Okay.
That's set up by a third party, not the Dixon Unified School
Okay,
District.
but
Who's
the
that
dis-
third-
who's the third party? And the Dixon Unified School District is paying for that, right?
I think, I have no idea. We'd have to ask John who's doing that. That's not controlled by my office.
That seems really strange.
Because that's where we've been trying to go. And so you understand where we were trying to go with it. It seems like all that should just be on the Dixon Measure Q website.
Which is,
With just the link on the district site to take you to Measure Q website.
which is why
Okay.
we got in.
I can only control,
No, but this,
not-
so
and
you
so I put up
understand.
there what I can do.
Right,
Right, so you understand what we're
because we're directing,
bouncing back and forth seems so cumbersome when it just, all this stuff that people are looking for should just be over Dixon Measure Q.
and we're directing the community to that site, and then we're getting emails back that they can't find things because
it goes
they're
back to the
here
district.
and not over there. Okay.
Okay? So they,
We need to, so we,
Yeah,
need to- that's why we had requested a meeting. We've sent 2 emails that we haven't gotten a response back, so we need to meet.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, we have, I think, 2 contracts currently that are on our webpage, but they're not under our website. Who do we deal with to get our website fixed? If you work for the
If it's
district.
not you, yeah,
that's through John and his group,
His group.
okay, so we'll have to, okay,
maintenance and bond.
okay.
which is what, when Andrea and I met with about probably 5 months ago, we sat in his office and we went through that, and then he put the changes that we wanted to that third-party person, and then they made those. So we need to do that again.
Correct.
You can't make those changes. Got it. Okay.
Right.
Can you, do you mind, can you click any of those contracts? Because I don't want just contracts, but I just want to see what's inside. I'm just
There's nothing in there yet.
Oh, nothing in any of them yet.
Correct.
It just doesn't need to be there.
So, just to
So
be
under
clear-
document uploads is what
I don't know why it's,
we've posted so far.
that's a little
None of the
okay,
contracts.
okay, so now now we better understand where
Okay.
the current responsibilities are, and then we can work with that, okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Who
Thank you,
is
Mark.
this third person that is doing our website?
Well, that's what we're gonna,
You need to ask John.
yep, that's what we're gonna
Gee.
drill down into. Yep.
So I need to be specific. Do you know the answer or you do not know the answer?
I do not know the answer.
For the 20th time, I'm going to ask.
Maybe the Russians control your site.
The who?
The Russians.
CNN.
Mrs.
Okay.
Things they can find.
Still two fingers.
It seems to me, the school district has certain obligations to this committee, provide infrastructure support, secretarial support, and I think website ought to be under it. So it seems like it's a very cumbersome process right now. And I think this committee and the subcommittee in particular are going to have to push pretty hard on this because
Tad, I have a feeling that besides going to John and asking him for whatever information we're asking for, we're not getting it, maybe we just need to go straight to the district and add it as an agenda item, because we've already gone through that before with them many times.
Yeah.
And supposedly we were given authority to receive whatever information we need, but we're still not getting there, whether it's contracts, website, whatever it may be.
Well, then these are the types of things that we should be putting in the next report. If we've asked
Correct.
and we haven't gotten, that needs to be reported to the citizens of Dixon.
In the
That is
next
part of this committee's responsibility.
So-
Ask, you don't get, they find out.
Report it.
Yeah, report it, absolutely.
Be factual.
And we have to give them some sort of reasonable timeline, even if they miss it, or if they hit it, whatever. But those are the types of things that they need to know, citizens need to know.
So I would expand the write-up on the website committee to kind of report, what happened up to June 30th, because I don't think that's captured elsewhere in this document.
No, there's nothing about.
So there needs to be a new section
Okay, so
placed.
in this section, because now I'm getting confused, CBOC roles and activities. This is not just what our duties are, this is actually what's happened also? Or is that in a separate area?
I don't see any
Because
other.
we're kind of, in my head, we're
Right.
kind of bouncing back and forth, that this is telling the community what our roles and activities, tasks are, and then,
could be
but sometimes we're including things that we have done, and sometimes we're not.
Right, but there's no other section to list it, so either
You
expand
can
it here.
place- No, she can place her information under activities. I mean, we were.
Okay, that's what you want to do
Yeah.
here. This is just not
Yeah,
our roles
maybe
and
another-
tasks. This
that's
is actually what we've done.
Yeah,
Okay,
so what the
okay.
intent of this is basically just explicitly saying what our roles are as subcommittees, and then the next paragraph is more of the activities. It was more generic because of the contracts is just way too much. It was just more generic, but maybe for under that part, you can explain more in terms of the website.
Okay, so
the
we don't want
activities.
this just to be informative, but also, I mean, a definition of what we're doing, but also what we have done
You've
is in
done
this section.
Under activities,
Okay.
yes.
Maybe actions would be the more appropriate word than activities.
For activities
Roles-
to
That's
date?
fine.
Or activities to June 30th?
It's always to June 30th for this
Yeah.
Yep,
report.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll just.
Yes, we'll take comments.
We'll put together an update.
It's unfathomable. Right now, we're in the technological age, and this is going on. There are high school kids that are good at it.
Yeah.
Get one of them to put up your site. Or get a parent who's technologically efficient, because it needs to be done.
Yeah.
People should have already been able to get on that site.
Well,
But-
it's there, it's just not.
But, well, it's not there. That doesn't answer the question, and or doesn't do anything for anybody. It needs to be on,
The links need to be
Yes.
corrected.
but somebody that knows how to do it.
Yeah, it needs to be functional.
Well, unfortunately, the code only requires the district to provide a website for about 5 specific things. It doesn't say it has to be professional. And
I'm not sure if we met the 5 specific things, so, anyway,
Okay, so
next.
We're gonna do that.
Oh, I have a question in terms of the audit. I know we've received the 16, 17, I think that was as part of the attachment, right? The audit report. But when do we receive the 17, 18, and do we include that in our,
They probably
This
don't
report.
even come out until October, November to finish that report.
so we won't, so we may need to say something like, the 17,
Will be
18
issued
will,
by-
next report or whatever.
Question. Hasn't the committee received the letter from the auditor that outlined his scope of audit for 17/18 that was sent to the district, and it was addressed to the committee on April 5th, 2018.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we did, yeah, and the timeline is going to be another 2 months before.
They're
We're gonna
going to
finish.
start the audit in November. They're working,
Right.
they're meeting with the
Oh,
district
they've already
right now.
done preliminary work.
Well, they've done interim work, but
But the
they'll do the final
auditor
stuff.
sent a letter specifically addressed to the board and Citizens Ban
Mm-hmm.
Oversight Committee dated April 5th. I have a copy of that letter. I don't think Gary has one, or I don't know if any one of you received a copy of the letter. It was several pages. I'll be glad to,
I think so. I
Yeah,
think we
no,
did
we did.
receive it as a committee, yes.
I'll be
I don't-
glad to
I-
send it to
I-
you if you don't, if you have.
I know I got a copy, but not, I don't think the committee ever received one, to my knowledge. It's not on our website, I know that, and we're supposed to have all of our correspondence on the website. But we can talk about that later, when we get to
We'll
that.
find it.
Okay, let's keep moving.
So back to my comment, so we will add a sentence under the audit, or maybe under the activities for audit that,
Yeah, we can put their timeline.
yeah. Do you know their timeline?
It's in November that they're going to finish.
Okay.
So we can say we're going to post it as soon as we get it. It'll be part of our minutes and
Okay. But don't we review it as well, right, before it's finalized, or do
Yeah.
we, do they,
We'll be part of the meeting supposedly, yeah.
supposedly, okay. All right.
Any issues with the activities paragraph?
I have a correction on page 10, just a minor correction, under cost bonding funding, bond funding. I think the third bullet, I had FY 18-19, that needs to be changed to 17-18. My apologies.
Oh, yeah.
So, the question I have in terms of the expenditures report for 17-18, and also 16-17, because it should be from the beginning. I guess maybe I need some understanding, or somebody needs to teach me how to read it, but for some reason it doesn't balance out to me. Encumbrances versus expenditures, and what's actually submitted to the district as an actual contract. The encumbrance doesn't match. So I need I don't know if it's another subcommittee or whatever, or if it's just under the contract subcommittee, but I need to have a better understanding as how to read that, because to me, even as a public, it did not make sense to me. And so I want to be able, if we're reporting that report, the encumbrance and expenditures report, I want to make sure that we explain what it is that we're reviewing and if they actually make sense. That's just a comment.
Have you gotten the appropriate information, or it just doesn't make sense?
I do have the information. So what I've done is I worked backwards. I went to the district's website. I've looked at all their board meetings I only went from June. I think I did September, but from June. And I looked at what was presented to the board as part of an approval for a contract or whatnot. And I've compared that to the encumbrance report. In my line of work, whatever we present to our board, whatever that contract value is, that's our encumbrance amount. But for some reason, what I saw in the encumbrance report, it didn't match. It was more. And so maybe I'm not understanding something, and that's what I wanted to just kind of review with somebody, if anybody knows how that process is done with the district.
Have the accounting, the CBO come and just give us a quick.
Okay.
And sometimes they encumber like through the end of the project, which might be like a 2-year, so it's going to look like it's more than it really is, but it's through like the, we'd have that with grants too.
Okay,
It's
well, it
encumbered
just
and-
needs to be explained,
Okay.
that's
Right,
all.
right.
Because if you look at the very bottom of the page, I try to compare, I said, I've seen through the district's meetings that there was 1 million of contracts presented for approval, but yet I saw like 1.4 of bond money being encumbered, and so that's why
Melissa,
I
I think would
wanted
be
to.
good to go over that with
You're
Melissa
saying
Mercado.
did you say they were encumbering less than,
they're encumbering more.
well, they can't encumber more than been approved.
That's why I'm
And that's what,
asking.
when you have a contract, you have to make sure you encumber so that money is basically set aside, obviously.
That's your check.
And so, yeah, it should agree. Now, sometimes I guess it could be, under circumstance, it could be less,
I wish that was the case.
but it's
So,
not more.
But you got like a 40% discrepancy here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a-
and
that's a
some
large-
of these, I understand encumbrances are primarily contracts, and there are expenditures that are not encumbered, right? Like the
Right.
clerical expenses and the legal fees, which I also want to talk about the legal fees. But I'm more focused on the contracts for now. I just wanted to make sure that we encumber, the bond pays for the contracts that are being awarded and presented to the board. I just want to make sure that's clear. And then I wish John was here because I did have some questions. The general question is, prior to Measure Q being approved, they did some facilities assessment or whatnot, but there had to be some sort of estimate for the Measure Q or for whatever funding they needed for the projects, right? There has to be some sort of estimate to say, okay, public, we have a need for $30 million, and this is how we got to that $30 million.
I thought we
Whatever.
already talked about that. That was gone over.
Wait, hold on. So, but my question is, I wanted to be more explicit as to what they assumed to be part of that bond fund, such as soft costs, the legal fees. Was that there? Is that approved? Is that
I
good?
believe so.
When was that?
I think it was our
Okay, so,
second meeting. It was-
so if maybe you
There's
guys can
those
help
sheets
me
that we
out.
have, yeah.
Okay, so maybe help me out as to how they got to the request, or maybe their estimate. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we've got a
So,
breakdown of
so
that.
remember
Okay.
that the bond that we went out for was significantly less than what the facilities committee said we needed. It was about a quarter of the original total, which is the way most districts work, is that
Okay.
Everything.
you come back and they say, you need 120, and you say, great, we can only do 23, 28, 30, 34. I think we even cut it down a little bit. I have a quick question, though, on page 9, and it might be my misunderstanding, the breakdown of the cost of the different items on the bond. I thought Anderson and security are flipped dollar-wise.
That could be it, but I need to double check, just to look in the Measure
Okay.
Q. Yeah.
I would think it would be, that's.
I thought we had always said about 3 for Anderson
There's-
and about $1 million for fire, but,
Okay, we'll double check.
thank you.
It's a lot of work to do at Anderson,
Yes.
what they plan.
So Tad, I have I have a question. So if we go back to page 4 and it discusses the premium of $971,554, and then going back to page 9, monitoring the bond funding. So is this premium going to be reflected incrementally in the bond funding monitoring? You know, they've got the cost of issuance in here, $230,000. I was just wondering if this premium, does that fold into this to some percentage as this goes along? Or is that premium just a one-time cost of capital function, or,
Yeah, I'm not,
I'm just curious, you know.
I'm not the expert on the cost of issuing these bonds.
Okay.
And from what I vaguely remember, I think that was the cost of pushing them out into the marketplace, but I'm not an expert in that.
Okay.
You remember several meetings ago, I told you I was going to ask the county treasurer, who's understands, you know, there's 3 different people involved in this. You got the assessor, you've got the controller, auditor, and the treasurer, and they all have functions. And I wanted him to come to a meeting and sort of, you know,
Shed some
I know
light.
some of the answers to that, but I don't want to get into a long discussion now. And
Okay.
I would rather have him come and do that, and maybe we can get that scheduled.
Okay. No, that'd be great, because,
But is that number reasonable for this size of a bond issue?
no idea, it just seems,
That he would come down here?
no, that
That
amount,
that cost is reasonable for this
as
type of
compared to
bond.
the amount of the
Well,
bond.
yeah, what's reasonable? The,
But keep in mind, all that happened before this committee was even functioning.
Oh, yeah, and that's why it's more of a curious question,
Yeah.
but realistically, you know, we could have a member of the public look at this
Yeah.
and ask that same question. It'd be nice to have an answer ready, or maybe add into this report in the appropriate place a little bit of an
Yes, I
explanation.
think a little more detail
Yeah, a
for
little
the
more detail.
people
There you go.
not
Yeah.
that familiar with bond issuance.
there's
Should
another,
be captured.
there's another element in here that I don't think it's here is the premium. That's another amount.
Yeah, the premium's another amount.
And we probably should expand upon this there. And, you know, that premium is deposited in the county treasurer, and that's used to pay the, you know, it's part of
The function of a premium.
yeah, it'll be used to pay the debt service, you know.
Right.
And, you know, how a bond's issued at premium or discount, you know, that's how the market is, I guess, so. But I will ask him, I don't know if next meeting's gonna be the right one, but that's something it'd be, since we are the bond oversight
Yeah.
committee, it'd be nice to understand how the bond process works.
It would, yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to continue reporting.
Yep.
I'm so sorry.
So, we, page
I'm
12
still
now?
on page 10. No, I'm
page
still on
10.
page 10. So the reason why I was asking about the Measure Q, how it was estimated and what budget line items we're seeking for in terms of soft costs or whatnot, because I wanted to confirm the clerical and legal expenses. First, I don't even know where to look as to how to confirm clerical expenses is allowed, even though I know they presented something sometime in September, some kind of clerical documentation that, was it Melissa or somebody from, I can't remember. I wasn't here, but I saw there was a link to our website about some clerical documentation that I think that was basically justifying why clerical expenses is allowed.
Well, that's
The link's not working, I can't really see it, but,
I'll send you a copy. That's the Attorney General opinion.
yeah.
It's 3-4 page document.
Opinion.
I'll send you a copy of that.
So, but, I mean, I just wanted to know what other expenses the district, I can understand construction, but I mean, soft cost wise, I want to know what they were assuming that the bond's going to pay for. And what I'm so frustrated with the district about is, I just want a project expenditures, a budget by expenditures report. Tell me, out of the 30 million, I can't remember if that's the amount, the $30 million grant that we have for the modernization project, this is how much we have. This is what we're budgeting, these are the line items, and this is how much we've expended. Trying to compare that or trying to look at the expenditures and encumbrances report and putting it together for them. I'm very frustrated at that, and I've already brought that up to John before. I've asked him for, a project budget for even just the modernization, as their pilot project budget or whatnot. I'm sure they're keeping track of it, but I just want a copy so it's a lot easier to review it and understand what it is that they're assuming that's part of the scope of the bond. That's all I want. And if I need, if Tad, if we need to bring it up to the district and actually request for it, we should. Okay, because I'm not gonna work backwards. We don't have a lot of time, we're volunteering our time. It would be great if we were just given the information that we've requested. It would be great if we were courtesied copied that there are solicitations going on, because we don't find out until later. I didn't find out until I saw the encumbrance report, that there were already other contracts being approved or being paid for. So, I've mentioned that to John, and it sounds like he wasn't at that level of technology yet or whatnot, but
Somebody has to be
Yeah.
at the district
just a
level.
courtesy would be great, so that way I'm not wasting my time working backwards and keep asking. It's not difficult, and so like I said, if we need to go to it might be too much for him, for his work, but that's part of our job. How are we to oversee what they're doing if we're not getting the information we're seeking and we're working backwards? It's a lot of resources wasted.
When
and
you've
we are
asked him
all
for this stuff,
volunteers.
is it a verbal question or have you emailed him?
Both.
Okay.
Well, as you may recall, I had back and forth with the business manager about a budget when we were reviewing the expenditure report, and she says, that is the budget. That is a budget. And, I just dropped the issue because to me, it's not a budget, because I've done budgets. And there's an expenditure report, that's something different than the budget. And that is not a budget, but I didn't want to belay it because she seemed to think that she was presenting us with a budget, and it doesn't fulfill the purpose of a budget.
Correct. When you're managing projects, especially multi-million-dollar projects, and there's more than one project that you're managing, I know that they are keeping track of it. And that expenditure encumbrances budget report that they're saying, that's not it.
Did you have this one?
Yeah, that's not it. That's just an estimate. That's not what I'm looking for. That's just the construction piece of it. I'm looking more of the soft side of it as well. Yeah.
Georgette, so basically what you're saying is this expenditure report is something that could accompany a budget and be compared to a budget, but
Correct.
it's not a budget. And that's what Gary said too.
The way the SAS reports work.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna email you, Tad. I'm gonna list the things that I'm gonna request one more time. John can either provide us a timeline as to when we're gonna receive it, and by the way, we're short, because we're reporting soon, our first annual report, but I'm really expecting a very responsive answer.
Well, I think we should suggest that timeline then, something that's reasonable, whether it's,
2 months ago, yes.
how many business days do you think reasonably somebody should need to get something like that together?
Right.
Is it 7 business days? Is it 14 business? I don't know. I would suggest that when you send that communique on up, that you dictate the time frame of when you'd like to have it by. And if it can't be met, please annotate why it can't be, Because again, this is a report to the citizens. If it can't be done in the timeline we need to get this report out, well, then that needs to be reported. So,
Agreed. Georgette, then under soft costs, we got legal fees. Was that defined anywhere?
Nope.
All right.
That is why I've
right.
put it in there, because
Yeah.
I am unsure.
Yeah.
And it should be brought up,
Yeah.
because there were a lot of legal fees that I saw.
All right, so have we posed that question to the district? Yet.
I will send you a comprehensive list based on this report,
Okay.
what are missing that we haven't had a chance to look at, and provide a timeline to the district as to when we can expect it. And so, because I would like for whatever documents that they're gonna send, because I am trying to, report on this FY last June's, report.
Okay.
And I know that we need to be able to provide our annual report to the public soon. So I'm going to give them probably 5 business days.
Okay.
I don't know. Because you're still going to review it.
Yeah.
Can I
Yes.
just bring to your attention something? I cannot remember which school board meeting was, but they had a closed session agenda item who said anticipated litigation. And they had a discussion with their attorney, and when they came out of the closed session, they announced that the school district was going to reply to the Bond Oversight Committee letter. Now, which one of you threatened them with a litigation to have that anticipated litigation closed session? I don't know, but usually, and then after that was when Mr. Soldani attended this school board meeting, and when I asked a public records request, the cost, it was $2,499. And when I asked them to give me his invoice, because the Supreme Court said invoices are public records, the district refused to provide them, and I just didn't want to deal with them anymore. So Mr. Soldani was asked by the school board to attend your meeting and tell you that you are not voting right, and he came from Fresno, and he charged the bond over the bond Measure Q of $2,400.
Well, he didn't, the district did, the business office.
District asked him to attend your meeting, they should take it out of their legal fund.
Yeah, for this report, it ends June 30th, and that happened after that. Although we do have that topic you just mentioned, legal fees under unfinished business, item 5B, so we will get to it.
If you look, I think Mr. Soldani was here at your June meeting.
That's why, that's the reason we can do interim reports. We can do a short report if something comes up we think's important, and just like this issue on the fee, if we don't want to put it in the annual report, we can do an interim report instead of waiting another year to put the information out there. So that's one avenue.
Okay.
Let's see, where am I here?
We are right at the end of page 10.
Yeah. To ensure-
Okay. So, in terms of soft and contracts and encumbrances, I'm just basically reporting what I've seen through the district's meetings, what's been presented for approvals or whatnot that were not presented to us, but, we'll ask for those information.
Before you go on,
Oh, I'm sorry.
under the paragraph, cost bonding funding, 15.2 million, just a minor thing, it says also there are clerical and legal expenses that the CBOC committee is discussing. We don't need the committee in there because that's
Okay, double,
redundant, but
yeah.
that's not a, but, yeah, no, that's all I had on that. And as far as the soft costs, is that part of it? Did we just finish that? Or is there another? Did we have a list? We had a list, but it did have amounts?
I'm sorry, for soft costs? Yeah, the contracts, I spelled out what were the contracts for the soft cost.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And looking at the expenditure report, my comment to myself was, it looks like most of the expenditures are soft costs. And that's understandable at the beginning. The construction is going to be the biggie. And, you know, that's as should be. But I think John gave us a number of 30%. They're trying to stay under 30% for soft costs. Of course, we can't look at that. We've got to look at it in total, not,
Right.
you know, at the beginning.
Right. So, but again, you know, we walked the site a couple of weeks ago, I can't remember. And, you know, basically they've done the re-roof. I'm just talking about in terms of schedule and construction, the contracts. They've already done the re-roof project. I think they're almost fully complete with that. They're probably doing closeouts. And then they've also supposedly done some remediations already in terms of lead and asbestos. You did see that the portable classrooms are gone, and part of removing those portable classrooms were the electrical to terminate them. But those were the construction contracts that I saw as part of 1718.
Do we want to mention that we saw work that had been performed by their,
Well,
or
yeah, that is, I was going to ask John that question. The question that I had was, I was going to ask him what projects or other savings were non-bond funds, because they were self-performing some of the work. They were using, you know, district's money, capital monies to do other work. And so, you know, I want to be able to at least tell the public, hey, besides these bond funds, the district is trying to put in some money also, you know, to
Oh,
do
yeah.
some of the work. And so I was going to ask him that question, but
no, I think
Based on the
that'd
fact,
be
you've
good.
got a number of questions for him, should we table some of this for when he's here? I'm just not sure how much we're gonna get done, because I'm
I
hearing you
was
say, you
just
know.
gonna email it to Tad, because by the time we see him, if he is here next time, we're already in October, and, you know, it's more of, I think we were trying to have a report out to the public finalized. We were hoping, before end of, I said December, but I think we were trying to go sooner than that. And
Yeah.
so, I will tell the committee what questions I have. I will mention it, so that way you guys are aware of some of the concerns that,
Yeah, it might spur other questions when we read yours, so you never know.
yeah.
And then note in there too, like the roof, which I think is in here, that fell under that other Prop 39, right? So there was some,
The HVAC
The
fell
HVAC.
under
HVAC.
Prop 39.
The roof is,
Different.
The roof was,
proposition.
is bond.
A different Prop 39.
yes,
Yes. Yes,
So that should be included.
an
too,
energy
those-
saving Prop 39.
Yeah.
And I
think
believe
we-
that work is done.
There are, I think we do have a savings portions towards the end of the report, but I want to be able to spell out more than just a, you know, generic line there. I want to be able to tell the public, perhaps if John is willing to say how much they've expended under their own monies, you know.
Well, he was
but-
relatively forthcoming during that walkthrough,
Really
so.
was.
Yeah, so, okay. I'm going to move on to page 12. I would like to add the June 2017 when we were formed, so that way the public can visually see that there were activities happening prior to us being formed, so I think we should put that in there. The question I have for page 13, in terms of Dudek's contract, I wanted to ask if there was an outcome, I guess, in terms of what they were supposed to do. It was presented back in February. That was already, what, 6, 8 months ago? I can't count. 9, anyways. I was just curious as to what's the outcome of that. I thought there was supposed to be some kind of traffic study report that was to be presented, but I haven't seen anything yet. So that was a question I was going to ask
That was
John.
discussed. I don't know that we've ever seen that. I don't recall seeing it, but I do know it
I
was
don't,
discussed.
I know it wasn't even presented.
Was that
for us.
presented at a school board meeting?
Yeah,
I want to say I thought it
Yeah.
was.
yeah.
Yeah, I think they presented at a school board meeting and not to us.
An actual traffic study report?
Yes.
It was on the agenda for the school board meeting a couple of months ago. I want to say June or July, I cannot remember. And on that, they said approval of the traffic report and some other stuff, but there was nothing backup material to show the traffic report. So I went down to the school district during business hours, and I said, I like to see the agenda. I want to see the hard copies, that, the agenda. And I was told that they quit providing hard copies, and go home and look at it on the website. So I said, well, the Public Records Act states that any citizen can come during business hours and review copies, but I guess if you don't have any hard copies, I go and look at the agenda. Well, I got a copy of our attorney. We have been working with an attorney from Southern California who follows up in school district agendas, minutes, and stuff like that. So he asked me if I got a copy of that report, and I told him no. So he sent a letter to the school district and said, I want a copy of that report. And he told me to go to the school board meeting and just sit in the back and watch what happened. Well, apparently the school district did not tell the Dudek representative that she was supposed to say that there was a traffic report, because the lady stood up and said, provided about 4 or 5 slides of her report, and the question from the school board members was, where is the traffic report? Because they had seen our attorney's letter. And she says, well, we didn't do a traffic report. And so they asked, well, what kind of traffic report we're going to be approving if you didn't do a traffic report? So they sent her back to do a traffic report, and it was supposed to come to the school board in a September meeting. I think they just had their second September meeting a week or so ago, or was last Thursday, I think. And no report from Dudek has been presented, and I don't know if they have done their traffic report. So, if you want anything about the traffic report, just let me know and I'll send you the
Well, that was a question to John, because as far
So
as the
that's
CEQA
something we're-
analysis, I think they were going to do a traffic study, and
Yeah, we're going to
we
need
haven't seen
to
anything.
see that.
Yeah.
And they
So
were
so all that funding came out of the bond?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
Dudek.
Okay.
All 24K right now? I think
And
there's
they were-
actually
and-
more.
And they were the best contractor.
And if they didn't do a report, then what happened there? Where'd the money go if there's no report?
That's why it's best that, well, I'm not going to say best, but part of our duty is to oversee. And we are just to report, basically, what's
No, I
going on.
understand, but I mean, if there's no report and we paid 24,000 from the bond, and we didn't get anything for the 24,000, then that needs to be documented and reported. That's, the
Yeah.
you know.
There was one, back in March of 2018, John had presented some alternates as part of the bond, and I know they're trying to find other ways to pay for the cost overruns, okay? But I had a clarification for him. He kept mentioning that there were additional scope or alternates that they want to add as part of the project, the modernization project. He was calling them deductive alternates when on paper, technically, it looks like there were additional scope. Deductive to me is, by the way, we decided not to do this room. Can you tell me how much it would cost to not do this room? How much less would our contract be? So that's just more of a clarification that I wanted to ask John, because he had it written as deductive. To me, it looks like it's an additional cost, not a deduct.
I thought that if memory serves, it was deductive because it was going to be paid for with grant money. That's what I thought I remember hearing them say. But
Yeah, I don't know. It was the MPR HVAC and the small gym flooring. So,
Because it was an efficiency thing that they were getting grant money because of the efficiency of what they were replacing with.
right. But, well, in any case, I just wanted clarification between the two.
Is that captured in the report? Because you've lost me where you are. Okay,
I was actually still in the project scope cost.
okay,
But I was kind of trying to I'm sorry, I went off topic.
okay.
I did. But it was just a question that came up.
So that would be something you would insert at the end of this section, if you get the answers?
I'm not sure yet. I'm not
Okay.
sure if we're there to report it.
Okay.
So again, under page 16, security safety. So the playground equipment, I saw in the 17-18 report that it was going to be paid for by bonds, but then they removed it all. And so I wasn't, that was just a question if, they decided, to cover it themselves and not pay for it by the bonds. But you had that in your cover letter, so I was
Yep.
going to just clarify that. And then, as on page 16, I'm not sure, I think it was brought up to our committee that they were doing Gretchen Higgins' work. They were just in the conceptual phase of, doing the fencing work. I can't remember, but,
Yeah.
okay, so it is there. Okay, that's fine then. All right, so, that was it in terms of contracts and the schedule.
So just to confirm, we didn't have any items on page 14, 15, or, on page 14 or 15?
No, that's just more of reporting of what were construction costs presented and encumbered and paid for, so.
If this one was which was pointed out earlier, the 1 versus the 3
Yeah,
million, that
I'll
would just need to be
confirm that.
corrected. Okay.
Actually, I was already on
Great.
my
Perfect.
iPad died.
Okay, so are we ready to go on to the results of the financial and performance audits? All right, so is there any public comment on the project scope, cost, schedule, contracts? Okay, seeing none, we're free to move on to the results of the financial and performance audits.
It's pretty straightforward what we put in our interim report, so, that last paragraph, under the result of the financial performance audits, who provided that figure that would require $10,000 to audit, or to change the, make the changes to the audit
I
report.
provided that number, and that was based on what I heard at a school board meeting.
Well,
And it was just perhaps, so,
the contract for the audit was $2,900. So, you know, that's,
so there was going to be significant costs associated with refiling it and other issues, so maybe we can just strike that then?
yeah, I think, and there was interest in, we said there was interest in making changes to the report, but the district made the decision not to make changes for various reasons other than the cost. And as you remember, they wrote us a letter, very detailed, which I prepared a reply to, but we didn't send the reply to them. And let me just go over that report real quick. This is really the gist of it. And then, well, let me go on. A request, for example, a request for the auditor to make findings that the committee was formed beyond the statutory deadline has no bearing on whether funds were expended for bond purposes. Such a finding goes beyond the committee's duty to verify that bond funds are solely used for bond purposes. Moreover, such a finding goes beyond the scope of the auditor's responsibility, as it would essentially require a finding of a legal rather than a financial nature. Similar, the request that the auditor find that the report was not provided to the committee at the same time as the governing board does not pertain to the issue of whether bond funds were expended appropriately. In other words, they're basically saying that did not belong in the audit report because it was a legal issue. Well, the legal issue is in the Ed Code, it's in the Constitution, it covers Prop 39. And I addressed that before. And, if they were doing a true compliance audit, they would consider the laws. And I remember when Jesse, I think that was his name, he agreed that if he knew that, if he was told that, if he was made aware of that, those issues, he would have put it in the audit report. But the district spent an inordinate amount of time when I went back again and presented it, and they brought the auditor back in there, and I guess they got him to agree with them then. You know, but they kind of backtracked to cover what they already say. But this letter is so off base, and that's why, that's really the reason. It wasn't the money. The reason, they just did not want us to get in. They're trying to restrict the scope of what this committee does. And I guess that's just to meet quarterly and look at a financial report that's printed and given to us and say, well, that's for this and this and this, so everything's good. We go home, write a report, and that's the end of it. So,
Well, my suggestion, let's capture a little bit of that nice summary you just provided and insert it in here. We can do that.
okay, I'll make some more issue, but that is the real, this letter should have been answered, and it wasn't. Because if, you know, somewhere we have to be firm with the board, and we can continue to agree to disagree, but they need to understand that we're not agreeing. And I think that they get the idea because we don't respond that, well, I guess we straighten them out, and they go on to do something else. And, I don't want to get into arguments with the board. I mean, we need them to support us, and they need us to do a good job by supporting us. And if either one fails in our duties, then, the community doesn't get the results that they deserve. I will do some rewriting there.
Any public comment?
Transparency is not here with the board to the committee. That's unfair to the public. I don't know who's on the board. I don't have children in school, so I don't go. But I'm hearing what's going on is just not good for the public to hear. If you're going to be honest, maybe they'll come to the meetings. I don't know. Maybe the board will start standing up for what they should be standing up instead of trying to stop the committee from learning certain things. This is the first time I came to it. Well, I've come a couple of times, but to hear what's going on this evening, it's a mess. I hate to say it. And you're trying to put this puzzle together, and you don't have the pieces. You need to demand those pieces, because this is outrageous. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one thing for page 19, and it's very small, but bullet item 2, network wired and wireless funded through E-rate. I think you should just specify computer network or computer-based network.
I'm assuming, yes. I just grabbed the information.
No, I just think that should be pointed out.
Forced labor?
Yeah, I saw that one too.
Yeah, I don't know what the forced labor.
I think it
You
needs
know
to be
what
different.
that means.
I'm like, what? Got to be a better word for that.
We're not Nike.
I guess you're referring to district labor,
District labor.
so they
That's what they use.
Forced.
district forced labor.
Forced bad.
District staff labor.
Force account, that's a
Yeah,
different deal.
district staff or something, right?
Internal labor.
Yeah, forced.
There you go, internal labor. Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, I'm gonna go back really quick on page 9. All the millions of dollars that are assigned to the projects. I just want to make it clear, the Measure Q is for 30-something million. This is just the first issuance, and this is how it was broken out. So it may just say 1 million for Anderson, but technically it's like a $12 million project. This is just for the first issuance, and I think the 1 million, they were trying to hit the FF&E part. So that's why I had to make sure that's clear. And so let me double check if I said for Anderson.
That's first series, so yeah, you capture that in the first sentence there.
Yeah, but perhaps under Anderson on page 15, maybe ask what the 1 million was going to be slotted for. I mean, again, it's just the first issuance. I'm not sure if they're going to use it yet. But I want to make sure that we're clear that out of the 12 million, they've received 1 million. That's what it is. So we're going to keep the 1 and 3 where it is, because that's how it was issued or assigned. Okay.
So you were originally correct then?
Right.
I just got the
always-
information.
Okay.
I'm
she's
just
always correct.
reporting what I received.
Okay.
so. Okay, so let's go to page 20. And I'm not sure if this should be on the last part of the report. Issues. There were many issues that I think the committee came across as we've gone through trying to do our jobs. The availability of the contract, that's one key thing. We've gone back and forth with the district, so I'm not sure if what we've said here is sufficient or if we need to add any more to it. But there's also the trying to organize the website, making sure it's functional. And then the district's perception of our committee. So that part, I think we definitely need to have put in more information on it, but
I would say on that one,
which one?
the last paragraph, the
Uh-huh.
district versus CBOC perceptions, the role of the committee. The committee will report on actual findings and will not be, how do I say this, persuaded or guided by the district. As we're an independent reporting body. I think it's very, it's very important that we make that distinction, so we're not perceived as an extension of the district.
Well, I will read what, because I was asked to add more, and so I've added more. And it's a thought, and again, maybe too much. I don't think it is, but I'm only one person. I've written, there has been fundamental difference in the perception of the role and responsibility of the CBOC between the district and the CBOC members. The district has taken the position of a limited scope allowed for CBOC oversight activities and responsibilities, also determining that the district had authority to approve or not approve the CBOC bylaws. The committee understands they have no authority over the decisions regarding the construction process. However, in our role of independent oversight and in the spirit of transparency and full disclosure, the committee should not be limited in our review and reporting on whatever is related to Measure Q, including contracts, legal requirements of Prop 39, bond issues, as well as financial documents. The Ed Code Section 15264 to 15288 that implement Prop 39 do not mention allowable or limited or scope in reference to the activities or responsibilities of oversight committees. And that's what I basically put in a letter to respond to the district. We didn't forward that letter, and I don't think the district still knows our position on that. And
So Gary, I mean, just maybe an additional thought or maybe a final comment to everything you just said. Okay, because sometimes it's nice just to have one simple shot across the bow, so maybe that's not a good reference. So anyhow, just a simply put, here it is. The CBOC will continue to work independently to report to the public on its oversight findings. So I think that, you know, if you really tear it down, what it says that this is what we've been doing from day one, we're going to continue to do it and report to the public, and we are independent, and this is what we're doing. We're reporting findings on our oversight function and mission. All that. And then maybe finish it with something like this that just makes a solid statement. This is who we are, this is what we're doing, this is how we do it, and we are definitely independent.
Not to be a stickler of words, but
Oh, go for it.
I like what you said, Gary, and I like what Jack said as well. The only word I would ask that we refrain from using in a statement is should. Change that to will.
Absolutely. Should's weak.
So in your sentence, you said the committee should instead, and change that should to will, just to strengthen it just a little bit.
well, I agree with that. I like strong words, sometimes even stronger words. But,
Kind of falls in
Say
there
it
with,
ain't so.
with the may, right? 'Cause may's pretty much a,
yeah, I don't like may or
Yeah.
should,
Yeah.
Yeah.
would.
Yeah.
or could have.
That leaves it up to some varied interpretations.
Well, we can discuss that, we can strike it. We've got one more shot at this. That's why tonight, we're getting the public input on what we said, and they'll be back again. Hopefully, the next time we meet, we can finish this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds
And if,
doable.
If we get the information we
If
request.
we get the information.
Well, and if
Otherwise,
we,
it'll be a-
Well,
just need to be
regardless,
factual.
State that.
one way or the other, if you don't get the information, that's going to be in
You
it,
just,
That's a
just put
report.
that in there.
Yeah.
you know? So
Yes, and, you know, in the spirit of getting this to you, we weren't able to get.
it's not up to us whether the information is flattering or not. The information is the information.
Right.
Exactly.
And tapping onto that, I think this issues, I don't know if that's what it needs to be called, but it should be front and center. I'm not sure if it belongs at the end. I think it belongs more towards the front of the report. I mean, I don't know.
Findings usually end up at the end of the reports. You know, it's like your conclusion, your findings, they're always kind of at the end.
Well, this is more kind of like an executive report, right?
Unless you put it at
Bottom
the
line,
end
this-
of roles and activities.
I just don't think
But-
it belongs at the end.
You can put it at the end of that section.
After roles and activities.
well, what I think we need to do is kind of capture some of this and put another paragraph at the end of the vice chair's statement or letter from the vice chair and capture some of this.
Oh, I-
And then that will kind of strengthen it, bring it to the forefront, and then leave this issues, at the back as it is.
Okay.
That would be how I
So
would solve
rather than
that.
having a separate category, perhaps place it under whatever, like the contracts, the website, and then you can pick up the perceptions. I don't know
Yep.
if you want to put that in your letter?
Yes.
Okay.
Towards.
I got it,
Yep.
okay. So we'll move it towards the letter. The website we'll put under activities and also the contract part, okay?
Awesome.
All right.
I just had one thing on the contract, and I want to make sure I understand. Let's see, where was it? Oh. You said at the, on the availability contract about copies of contracts awarded that were, we were limited. Then you said this was very evident after receiving a copy of the expenditure report with encumbrances / contracts for companies for which the CBOC had not been notified. I guess that's good.
I don't know.
Is that what you said, or
Strengthening
did I
that.
change it?
You said 4, I said 2. But everything was the same.
Yeah, I think, I did reword it, because I was having
That's
trouble.
fine.
It didn't sound correct to me, but that's just me. And I didn't, the old rule to end a sentence with a preposition, I kept going around that one. So, is that, if that's,
You're more than welcome to.
if that's all right,
If you want.
if that's, I don't like to correct other people's work, but
No, this is our work. Okay,
well, did we finish with that?
Yeah, so timeline to make the corrections, modifications, updates, and insertions. 2 weeks?
let's see, when are we meeting next?
We'll have to
Because
talk
I
to
have to
John.
work backwards.
Yeah, well,
Because it's when it's due to him to include as part of the agenda. He needs it a week prior to the actual meeting?
Yeah,
A
well,
Monday prior?
well, we don't have a future meeting scheduled yet.
Okay, well, let's see, what's the calendar looking like? Typically, we meet towards the end of the month. So, how about,
Not Halloween.
well, I don't know, but, well, are we gonna dress up?
Coming costume.
Okay.
So how about by October 12th in terms of the edits? Because I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna go back and confirm who owes me edits. I'm
Yep.
gonna go page by page, okay?
Yeah, I think that's a good time, October 12th for your
Okay.
edits.
All right, so the vice chair, that's more for you, Tad. I believe the website committee owes part of the website piece of the chair, of the letter. You know, we did not completely talk about the last sentence to this. I don't feel comfortable about saying the funds were used appropriately. I just don't feel comfortable yet,
Once you meet
based
with
on
Melissa
the
and review.
encumbrances, right? So perhaps we can push it off aside for now?
We'll
Not-
push that off to the side till we see what
not
we have
include it? Yeah.
for the October 12th review.
So I'm just gonna remove it for now. And then Tad, you were gonna add the violation, perhaps maybe add it in here, the violations about, you know, not appointing the committee on time, not not receiving the audit ahead or the same time as the district or whatnot. And then also the better cooperation that we're seeking from the district. Next page, Gary, you do owe me some, I think you have additional comments in terms of the tax rate, which I do have, well, no, I have that. But I was just gonna add that we will further investigate it at the next report, unless you wanna go ahead and just, you know, issue an interim report or whatnot, you know?
Okay.
But that's what I'm putting down for now. Page 6, a comment from the public is in terms of how do we confirm about the salary being used for the bond funds? To tell you the truth, I am unsure, besides the bond saying no, but yet the Attorney General's opinion. I'm not sure if the Attorney's General opinion is an actual law or what, but
Again, we just explain what the situation is.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Then I'll reward that. Jack, you were to confirm your email.
yes.
Okay, I'm on page 7.
I'm on yes.
Gary, you have additional comments in terms of perhaps the superintendent not apologizing just to the district, but the citizen or whatnot. You had some additional comments to that.
Right.
Under Contracts Review Subcommittee, I'm going to remove the last sentence at the very bottom of the page, but also part of the public comment was to also explicitly say RFP, RFQs, solicitations or whatnot. Okay, so I'll include that. Page 8, under Audit Subcommittee, Gary, you wanted to add additional information in terms of the purpose of the subcommittee?
Yeah, there's just a few words. I
Okay.
can add that.
And then under activities, the website committee has some to add. I'm gonna add some issues in terms, I think it's already kind of says it there, but I'm gonna explain it more in terms of the contracts issues. I'm also gonna include in terms of the audit, the timeline for 17-18, that it will be posted to the website as soon as we receive it. Page 9, there's no corrections there. We're gonna leave that as is. Page 10, there were just minor corrections in terms of the fiscal year, CBOC and the committee. That's a double wording there. And that's it for
We did
that.
talk there about, I have in my notes about the energy savings with the HVAC.
I think that's gonna go under, at the last,
different
the
section?
savings
Okay.
section?
Weren't you going to
Oh.
change your
Yeah.
FY to 16, or instead of 18, 19 to
17,
17,
18.
Yeah.
17, 18? Okay.
Yeah, that's the correction there. I'm gonna keep going. Page 12, under schedule, I'm gonna add June 2017 when we were formed. Keep going.
What about
Page
page 13?
13,
due
we're
to-
going to find out the outcome
Oh,
of
that,
the
well,
CEQA due to-
I have all these questions.
Okay.
Oh,
separate.
sorry. Okay.
That's kind of like part of the report, but lots of questions.
Okay.
Page 18, Gary, you had additional comments that you wanted to add as part of the financial and performance audits, is that correct?
Yeah, that was your letter from the district to summarize
Right.
that.
Okay. Cost savings, again, that's part of my question to John, so I'll follow up with him on that. You guys don't like to say force or slavery, I'm just kidding, force, we'll say internal labor.
Put computer network as well.
Computer network,
Yeah.
okay,
In-house.
sure will. You want in-house?
I'd just throw that out.
Okay.
That's a-
Could you just say,
That's
use
a
of DUSD, labor
military
and
term,
construction services
Sure.
where possible?
EUSD, labor and construction services. Okay. All right. And then page 20, we had discussed about moving all these paragraphs to where they belong. The contract information, the website under activities. Tad, you're gonna include part of the perceptions between the district and CBOC as part of your letter. And Tad had some information, a sentence or whatnot to include if you would want. And then also Gary had additional information that he wanted to add as well. So we were gonna keep it here, but then we decided to just move it up front.
Okay.
So did everybody hear their assignments? And when due October, what did we say?
12th.
Okay.
Yes, I got my assignment.
So, due October 12th to me, so, I'll email out the Word doc. I'm not sure if you guys did receive the Word doc.
No.
Was that as part of the attachment, was it a PDF?
PDF.
Okay, so I'll email the Word doc, if not tonight, tomorrow. And then just put in a target deadline there. And then Tad, I'll email you all these questions, perhaps request for a next week deadline from John in order to meet the October 15th.
Thank you.
Okay, it looks like the committee's wrapped up the review of the draft. Any public comment? Okay, I think we're able to finally move on.
She was getting
Oh,
the mic.
I'm sorry.
I just want to ask you, the tax rate statement was part of the ballot. So if you go to the Solano Register of Voters and look at Measure Q, the resolution, blah, 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 then is the tax rate statement. And I have the email from the auditor controller who said that they charged $49.81 this last year. So I can forward that to you.
Yes, I think we agreed that we were going to insert.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Gary made
section
a
on that.
statement already. He's already had his blurb on,
Okay.
and we'll add it. So.
Okay. All right, moving on. We did get recent financial statements from the district. They were on the website, and they were basically recent expenditures.
The roof.
And we were missing the section from May
17,
May
18.
and June.
I think it's 17, 18 that we need the full. I'm not sure if it was part of our last meeting at all. I know I received it because I've asked for it, but it wasn't.
It wasn't posted, and I think you received it and then sent it out,
Right.
and that's not the way it should be done.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Well, the minutes reflect that we asked to put it back on this agenda,
but it wasn't attached.
but that didn't happen, but, and really to say that we reviewed the expenditures through the 30 June 2018 in our report. Should have some discussion on that. I mean, I've looked at it and that report, I didn't even bring a copy of, well, I think maybe I do. And I just had a question about some of the contracts and things, but it wasn't as far as the accuracy of the report or. Yeah, here it is. This goes from 7/1/17 through 6/30/18.
So Tad, maybe for our next meeting, make sure that we receive both, not just the 17, 18, but, go ahead and get started with this fiscal year, but perhaps somebody from the what's her name again, Melissa?
Business office, Melissa Mercado,
Melissa,
Yeah.
if she could be here to answer.
Melissa needs to get someone to post these transaction statements on our website so they're available. I mean, this was done for the last 2 months appropriately, but if you go back and look, there's not much else there under our various meetings. We have reviewed it, but they're not posted. And there are a couple questions I would like to have answered as to some expenses, and I just don't have the documents.
right, and so is this so the question that I had earlier in terms of trying to understand the report, is this like a meeting with Melissa that I need to have, or is it between the contract subcommittee to have a meeting with Melissa, or is it her reporting to us, explaining?
Well, I think the first step is to see what response we get from John. If it's not an appropriate response, then we're going to have to request that meeting with Melissa.
Okay. All right. So should we try to review this report? What are we
If
gonna
you just, if you're going to look at this report, I would just look at the expenditure column. I wouldn't look at the other parts. So basically, it looks like what's happened is just there's been some clerical salary that's been put on there, plus all the little bits associated with it, and the roof is on the last page. So that was paid, a part of that was paid for.
Yeah, the current report that she gave us didn't have that much.
And so that's all that's happened in July and August.
Well, there was
Part of September.
expenditure of $275,000 for the Rue and Son Mechanic, the roof, yeah, which you mentioned. That was the big expenditure. Total expenditures, $296,868.
That would make sense, because they completed the roof in the summer, so I think that's. And it looks like they've already started the Gretchen Higgins security project with the architectural firm Nexus. They've, I guess they're starting to do more design services for that, so that's good. Okay.
I never liked,
So, there was a report, an expenditures report provided to us that's in a simpler format. Where is it?
It was probably about the same.
No, the clerical was just one line item rather than 20 pages. So, 'cause it took me a while to kind of understand what was going on.
Yeah, that's just all the taxes and benefits and stuff.
Yeah, I wish it was just a one line, just tell me, how much was the clerical? I don't want to add it up.
Right.
That was just a little too much for me.
Yeah, this is all yeah. It's all the taxes parts
So-
of it.
That's one question I'm gonna ask John, and he can ask Melissa or whatnot. I want the report that they gave us back in September, that was pretty clean. It actually told us encumbrance and expenditure, that's great. But if they wanna use this because this is their budget report, that's fine, if that's what it is. But anyways, I'll talk to John about that.
I'm kind of jumping ahead, but, looking at this, I was interested to see if any of those legal fees for that discussion we had
I
in
didn't
June or
see it
July
there.
would show up on this, and I don't see anything here. And they would have billed it in, July or August or September, and it's just not on here.
I
So-
think that, I think that was,
They could have done it at 6:38.
yeah, probably July.
They could have budgeted for it in 6/30/18, and since we don't have it, we don't see it. Because you can put the payable in.
Yeah, that's one set of documents we don't have.
So that's where we need to look. You're right, though, it's not in this
Yeah.
one. Okay, moving on.
I don't see any other items of significance within this summary for July, August, and September. Is there anything else? Any public comment? Yeah.
I'm looking at this and I'm wondering, I see a lot of things here that pertain to school district, like the clerical, classified, all this stuff, Medicare.
Yep, that is the 20% for John's assistant to help him with managing this project.
And what is John doing? Not very much, because I'm not hearing it here. Just that
It's his
John's not here, the info's not here. Something needs to be done.
It's for his clerical assistant.
Yeah.
No.
So his time's not on here, but the way it was explained to us is that she obviously is spending time helping him with all the work and managing, getting the roof put on and the HVAC, not the HVAC, but the roof and all the work done at the thing. So very small portion of her time is put towards the bond.
She
Here's
came
a,
on the tour with us, and
What about the website? Is that on here?
So that's done through, that's what we have to find out.
here is a quick
who's-
summary of what John gave us. He said, "The secretary to the director is responsible for the clerical support of everything that is bond-related. She coordinates the director's schedule," I guess that's him, "and calendar, processes data and performs data entry, processes requisitions, is responsible for record management within the facilities office, and works with business services on record management as well. She maintains vendor information, controls the flow of everything that is coming into the facilities office regarding bond projects, and also process administrative details." And
From what meeting is that?
that is the 28th February 2018 minutes.
And she works under John.
Yes.
Right.
So when we request forms, she's most likely the person that's getting them.
So she's doing most of the work, but it's not showing up.
And my follow-up to that is actually, what is the full-time salary?
That's,
How can you confirm that that is 20% or whatnot?
that's what I'd like to know.
So,
Oh, you can get that.
yeah,
Position, yeah, you
I'm
can
gonna
get
ask,
Yeah.
I'll ask the question, I'll
Yeah.
add it.
Comparing to what Gary read in regards to the salary of the secretary and the Attorney General's opinion, the Attorney General, I thought I had this, states, use Proposition 39 school bond proceeds to pay the salaries of district employees to the extent they perform oversight work on construction projects. What Gary said about what the secretary is doing, she's not performing oversight work on construction projects. She's just setting up John's schedule and stuff like that. So even if the Attorney General's opinion was valid, even though it's just an opinion, she shouldn't be paying from bond funds.
Well, actually, John's job is to do the oversight, and his point was, and I can't disagree, he could be charging his salary.
Right.
And, and they decided to charge a portion of somebody supporting him in his duties rather than, his salary would be a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he explained it more like a time and materials thing. There's,
I-
that person,
That's,
Wait, hold on, let me add to it first.
that person does, they spend 20% of their time on the bond, and that's why 20% of that salary is paid from the bond,
I'm not, forming any opinion there, but that's the way he explained it, and probably under the provision of the, if we're putting reliance upon the Attorney General's opinion, then that would, that would probably be the right thing.
But again, John's position is not just to oversee the bond projects. He's got many other projects, so let's be clear about that. His job is not just the bonds, so technically it won't be his actual salary.
I thought they hired another person so that he could spend his time on this.
Adam is doing
There's a
some of
director
the,
of maintenance and operations, which
So that
was
portion
taken
of-
away from John, so he could oversee construction.
There you go. He's working
So he's
as taking the position of construction management.
Which he also mentioned that they were gonna look at hiring a CM. I'm not sure if you caught that. I don't know if it was from our job walk, I'm sorry, from our
Yeah,
site walk,
tour,
or,
yeah.
our
Our
tour.
sidewalk, yeah.
Or if it was from last meeting, but I could have sworn I recall him saying they're looking at hiring a CM. So I'm not forming an opinion, I'm just saying that,
I know we built a new high school, we had a construction management, and, because our facilities director was, well, he was an ex-teacher that they put in that job. I don't think he had the skills, but he was,
That was Ed.
for maintenance thing to supervise it. And, I saw that, I did see that, where they were planning on hiring somebody. And I don't know why you need a full-time person to oversee the project of this size and in construction management too. But we can get more details.
Anyway, Georgette, on your list of questions, you can pose the question to John about the 20%. One thing I do recall that he said if he didn't charge 20% to the bond, then he would have to do all that work himself, which would just slow everything down. So it was presented to us as an efficiency strategy. So again, our job is to report, that sort of reasoning to the community, and we really haven't captured that in our report. So that might be another thing that we need to elaborate on. Okay.
okay.
All right, so I think we are done with the financial statements. We'll move on to item 3, report from officers and subcommittees. I am guessing we don't have any based on the work we've been doing on this draft of our report. Is that correct?
I think.
Correct.
Yep. So we will move on to item 4, public comment on any other item that was not listed in the agenda. Seeing none, we'll move on to item 5, unfinished business. So the first item was the clerical support from the district. To discuss that, I think we've already hashed that over pretty well.
a lot.
So we'll move on from that. The legal fees, right now, we simply don't have the documentation from the district to discuss that one way or the other. If anything was charged to the bond money or bond account based on trying to get a legal opinion on our various letters we've written to the district or
So
anything
should I
else.
turn that question around to John?
Todd, I'm looking my email I got from John, and he replied that as of July 17th, they didn't had the invoice from the attorney, but he checked and with Melissa, and she told him was $2,495, and I can forward you that email if you want to.
But as of this financial report that we've gotten, they did not charge it, so
Well, we could check and see if
That's
the districts charge it. Our IT person can tell us if it's on the consent calendar, if those expenditures.
I don't see the consent calendar.
That sounded kind of like a request.
Wait a minute.
But I do have it listed on my list to talk to John about.
But Ted, I'm going to ask a question.
Yep.
You know, what's the basis of using bond funds for legal fees?
yes,
How about I just turn it around to them?
yep,
Okay.
okay. Any public comment on that? Okay, moving on to the Measure Q website. Again, that's another item we have heavily discussed. It sounds like our committee is just basically going to have to go to John Cleese and kind of push the issue a little bit. Well,
Send an email.
I'm really confused why a third-party entity is handling this. I don't see the logic in that. It's just making it very cumbersome, so we'll have to get an answer on that.
Well, that was when I was looking at it, I was thinking, is the problem that we as a committee have not articulated what we want, or is it that whoever is actually doing the work, which we haven't communicated with directly as far as I know,
No, you're right. We have-
the person doing the work doesn't know what we want, or the worst, doesn't know how to do it, and the link in between, I guess John is between us and
Yeah.
the person actually doing the work. So, you know, where's the breakdown? Have we told him what we want? Has John related what we want? And why should he have to relay it? Because anytime another person passes on information, you know what happens? It gets
It's
distorted.
diluted,
Well,
changed.
so now we've done it one way, and now Julie and I will approach it from a different way, and
So perhaps you should be able to meet as a web
Right.
subcommittee, meet directly with the creator,
yeah.
the webmaster.
So we'll
Yeah,
approach it
who
in a
is this
different,
person?
approach it from a different way.
Okay, any public comment on the website? Yep. Yep. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, will the real, please step
yeah, we'll approach it a different way.
Moving on to new business, the Measure Q tax rate. Again, that's something we've discussed extensively. Are there any more committee ideas on that? Gary, you've talked about bringing people in to kind of explain why on our tax statements that these Measure Q money was combined with an old bond. I think that is an interesting question. I would certainly be fascinated to hear the rationale from that from someone at the county.
Well, this could be just one part of a discussion of the bond process, you know, and then specifically this item. But what I wanted the treasurer, because he's the guy in the middle, you know, and he works with the assessor has to tell, you know, whoever determines the fee, what's the assessed value, and that's how they come up with our rate. And then the auditor controller, they do the accounting part of it, and Chuck, naturally, Lamelli, the treasurer, collects the money. So I wanted him to come, and he could address this also. I think if we're going to try to finish this meeting, the next meeting on this report, that probably would not be a good time to
Yeah.
do it.
All right.
But we can just decide whether we want to include that in this
We do.
report, or
We
do
do.
an interim.
So
Okay.
I think you include it in this report as a, statement of fact. But like I said earlier on, we just have to make sure what we put in here is accurate.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
any public comment on that? So that would probably be the November meeting. Yeah, I would really enjoy that.
I'm just curious, from the Solano County Association, I'm sorry, I'm butchering it up, but, you've brought it up, I'm assuming, and to the auditor or to whatever other organizations besides just, I'm just curious if they've said anything, provided any explanations besides what the auditor had said.
Okay, well, the explanation was that the $36.75 they told the voters would not be enough to make the payment that it was due in August.
When they did the estimate for that rate, were they taking, because this is years ago,
I have.
were they were they taking into consideration the possible 1,500 homes on A Street?
I don't think so, because they look how many homes, what's the revenue from the property taxes, and then they estimate it accordingly. And so when, another thing also, that probably when they made the estimate, they didn't know that they were gonna sell the $19 million bond at a premium. Their interest rates from those bonds were almost 5%. And so they needed more money
To
to
cover.
pay the bondholders, and so they charge more. And I don't think it's illegal, but it's not transparent. And I've been told by people, if they knew that they were going to pay almost $50 per 100,000 evaluation for their home, they wouldn't vote for the bond. Plus, there is $43 for Measure J. So we are close to about $100 for 100,000 evaluation of your home.
And just refresh my memory, what was Measure J?
The new high school.
Okay. All right, moving on. Any announcements? I'll work with John Cleese, get the next meeting scheduled. I will follow up with the summary from Georgette and get answers. And if the website committee needs to meet with the website specialist who runs our Measure Q web page, we'll get that to happen. Is there anything else?
Jack, you and I will talk before we take off here about your email.
Okay,
That's straight?
sure.
You were working on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any movement on that?
Did you see the post I put on Dixon 411?
I don't really watch Dixon 411.
Okay.
He did
So,
post.
but are we going to have like a Measure Q Facebook page? I thought we had talked
I
about
can
that.
create that. I haven't
Okay.
yet, but I can create that.
Okay. It just popped in my head. Okay.
Do we need to put the missing financial report on the next agenda?
I think that's
Yes,
something
that's a
that,
given. I'll work with John on
Careful
that,
what's put on social
because
So we're
we
not
had a little bit of
violating-
discussion based on your email that you
Well, I'll
sent
have to
out.
read up on,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah. Well, my email was not exactly correct. I said the most recent. Well, the most recent is the one for the 2018-19. But, I did not state that correctly. That might have been confusing to him. But it was in the minutes that we didn't review it, which means you automatically put that on the next one, but
Okay.
didn't happen.
sorry.
Anything else?
I was just gonna move on to the next meeting dates, possible dates. Just not the 31st.
Not the 31st. Okay. I'm guessing it's going to be the first week in November,
Okay.
but we'll shoot for that.
Yeah, that would probably be good. By then, we should have everything for the report.
All right, is that it, folks?
So we want to say our
Motion.
next meeting is November 7th.
I'll have to confirm that. I don't know if this room is available,
Okay.
and
The
I know
14th is
that-
an alternate then, if that's,
I will get back to the committee as soon as possible.
okay.
All right? I call the meeting adjourned.
I'm on your